In this video, we're going to be talking about your priorities. When it comes to priorities, I think there are three main areas in our life. There's your health, your wealth, and your relationships. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing how Emily and I were able to create over $2 million worth of equity and wealth before the ages of 27, and how we were able to build a $5 million property portfolio while keeping our marriage intact, playing sport, enjoying our social life, going to church, and balancing all of these things. Now, everyone's journey is going to be different, and so you need to map out your own strategy and your own plan. And one of the ways we did this is by having what we called a spiritual plan or a yearly plan. I'm sure you're enjoying my handwriting there. But our yearly plan was essentially where Emily and I sat down each year and talked about our health, our wealth, and our relationships. And we documented what we wanted to achieve over that next 12 months and the bigger vision for our lives and what we were looking to create together. So before I break down how we built that multi-million-dollar property portfolio and created $2 million of net worth or equity, let's start off with the health component. I think everyone can agree if you don't have your health in order, then you're not going to enjoy your life and enjoy any wealth you create or the time you're spending with others. Now, when it comes to health, I've had my own fair share of injuries, but I consider myself blessed and lucky to be breathing, alive, healthy, have all my limbs intact, because there's a lot of people who aren't as lucky as myself today and who haven't been able to experience life like I've been able to experience. So when it comes to my health, you've got to find a balance. We like to eat out and we also like to eat chocolate and junk food and things like that. But on the flip side, I try to go to gym regularly and make that part of my schedule. So I go to gym maybe 2 to 4 times a week. I also really love playing soccer. Although this year, 2023, has been a terrible year for me being able to play the sport I love with a bad knee injury in my meniscus. And so part of my mental health is actually part of my physical health as well. So the one key point that I can give you, I'm not a guru when it comes to fitness or anything like that, but the one key point I can give you when it comes to your health is creating a consistent schedule. So for me, that's going to the gym around lunchtime each day or going to sport every Tuesday, Thursday night, and on weekends. And this morning, for example, getting up early and taking the dog for a walk and going for a walk with my son, Asa, and getting a few Ks in that way. And so that's one of the pillars in terms of us being able to create wealth in our lives. So we've ticked off health. Now it's time to talk about wealth. This all sounds very like sales pitchy, but it's true. So wealth for Emily and I has been a slow journey. When I graduated as an accountant, I was earning $45,000 a year plus super. So around 50K, including superannuation, and maybe making an extra 5 to 10 grand a year on the side, playing music at pubs and bars. Emily was just still finishing her university degree when we got married, and she was earning about $30,000 a year. And once she graduated, we were both on about 50K a year each, so $100,000 income as a household. Now, over time, that had steadily grown from 50 to 55 to 60 to 80 to 100K plus in terms of a PAYG income. One of the things you need to do when it comes to building your wealth is focus on your day job income. Most of my viewers are between the ages of 18 and 44 based on the YouTube analytics. And when it comes to building your wealth, people sometimes try and prioritize investing over actually earning the active income. If you can earn more money, then you can put that money away into those investments. Otherwise, you could just be saving a little bit, but you're better off probably spending your time building your active income first and then creating a large savings amount to go towards investments. And that's exactly what Emily and I did. We were able to save about $66,000 to purchase our first property. And the other thing we did when we purchased that property is take on some boarders within our own home. Now, this was somewhat uncomfortable, being newlyweds, buying our first home, and then having some boarders with us to make the rent a bit cheaper. But it was what we needed to do to get forward in our financial journey. And it came back to that yearly plan, or what we called our spiritual plan, as to what our current annual goals were and what our life goals were in terms of building the property portfolio. And so for us at a high level, we were looking each year to progress in our property investing journey towards the $2.5 million mark initially, which grew to $3 million, which grew to $5 million. And now probably the bigger goal is a $10 million asset base. And I want to buy a motel at some point between Brisbane and Coffs Harbour and run that like an Airbnb. So with that bigger vision in mind, how can you grow your active income, and then look at strategies to fast track your investing journey. Some of these strategies that we pulled on, or I like to call them levers, were adding value. So what ways could you add value? First, it was us using a smaller deposit to get into a great blue chip location. So although that was a higher risk for a lot of people, because we were willing to take on boarders, that made a massive difference in terms of us being able to manage that asset, pay down the debt slowly over time, and look to buy our next investment asset. Number 3 would be the renovations on that property. So we were able to add a kitchen, add a bathroom, paint the home a little bit, work out how we could reconfigure the space to make it more user-friendly. And so by adding value through renovations, we were again able to fast track. And number 4 would have been building my investment knowledge. You can't build your wealth without actually understanding what you're doing. I don't really think a lot of people build a multi-million-dollar property portfolio by chance. Unless you're a trust fund baby or you win the lotto, most people need to build their knowledge base, understand what they're doing and where they're going, and exactly work out how you can go from 1 asset to 2 assets to 3 assets and so on. Because a lot of people get stuck after 1 or 2 investment properties and don't build that larger portfolio. So that's where the research, understanding the wealth creation process, and how Emily and I were able to use equity to our advantage to buy properties 2, 3, and 4. So how exactly did we create that $2 million net worth? It really came down to building that asset base and being aggressive on all fronts. We started with capital growth first, and then we transitioned to cash flow assets to build the portfolio further. So we bought those capital growth properties, added value, looked for ways to create equity, and then refinanced and bought property number 2. Once we'd done that with property number 2, we did it with property number 3. And once we'd acquired around that $3 million to $3.5 million asset base, we pulled out over $700,000 worth of cash in our bank account from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. And with that money, we were able to purchase a $1.4 million unit block. It's around that $1.7 to $1.8 million in value today. And so it's a property by property journey, and it's a step by step in terms of that wealth creation. That's exactly how we were able to achieve $2 million of equity, buying property number 1, creating value, buying property number 2, manufacturing value again, building the asset base, and letting the market do the heavy lifting. We knew that Southeast Queensland was primed for growth, and I'm very bullish, obviously, on the Southeast Queensland market. We've got around $3.5 million of assets in Brisbane or Greater Brisbane, and we've got around that $1.7 to $1.8 million in New South Wales. So we're spreading our risk, we're diversifying, minimizing our land tax, and building our property portfolio. Which leads me into area number 3 around your priorities, which is relationships. We've talked about health and how that should be a priority of yours. We've talked about wealth and how Emily and I were able to build that multi-million-dollar property portfolio. But above all those things, I hold in the highest importance is relationships. Now, I've generally talked about this on the YouTube channel that I have a faith as a Christian and I believe in Jesus. And so that's one of the most important things in my life is my Christian faith and making that the center of my life. The other thing is obviously my relationships with my family and my friends and my clients and my network. And that's why we only work with 6 clients at a time to manage my time and manage my relationships. For Emily and I, if we were very healthy and fit and we had a lot of money, but our relationship wasn't in a good position, that wouldn't be the right priorities for us. So when it comes to health, wealth, and relationships, I think relationships stand at the top. You need to look after your family. You need to look after your friends. And I know things can change and sometimes relationships are going to change and you need to move on from people that aren't good for you. But for us, fostering our relationship, building our network with our church, our friends, my soccer mates, the list goes on. It's about prioritizing those relationships over money and obviously looking after yourself so you can look after others. So you really need a balance between all these 3 things. You need a balance between your health, your wealth, and your relationships. So just building that multi-million-dollar property portfolio is not going to make you happy. Whether you end up with a Bugatti, whether you end up on the news, with millions of dollars and you're a billionaire and you're a millionaire, if you don't have your health intact and you don't have the relationships around you that you're wanting to create and foster, then having this wealth doesn't mean anything. And that's why we went back to creating that yearly plan. we wanted the yearly plan to realign ourselves, work together towards the bigger vision and what we were going to achieve this year. A lot of people underestimate what they can do over a decade and overestimate what they can achieve in 6 to 12 months. That's why documenting where you want to be long-term and looking at the action steps to get you there are so important. If you want to sit down with myself and have a free strategy session where we talk through your current situation, that longer term vision, the steps to get there, then head over to purposeproperty.com.au. So if you're interested in buying a property in the Southeast Queensland market, then we can discuss the strategy both for that purchase and for your larger property portfolio. Also, if you're interested in picking up our course, Invest with Purpose, it talks you through the end-to-end of building that multi-million-dollar portfolio. You can also find the links at purposeproperty.com.au. So I know this has been a far more detailed chat around life in general and about creating wealth, but I think it's a bigger vision than just making money. And you need these other factors in terms of your health, wealth, and relationships to live an enriched and fulfilled life. A bigger bank account is not going to make you happy, although I'm sure a lot of people want to try. And so I think you've got to find the balance between each of these areas. If you want to see a video of me breaking down my salary as an accountant for the first 5 years of my career, click this video over here. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.